Hey guys, Snower here. Today I want to talk about my new Dragon Zoth deck. I wanted to make a video for this deck, both because the playstyle is a little complicated, and because some people are visual learners and they don't just want to read a big wall of text, although I do highly recommend that you also read the text below this video. Alright, so starting off, before I hop into any gameplay, I just want to go over the cards that I've put in this list a little bit, because it's got some pretty specific includes, and I've gotten a lot of questions both on Hearthpwn and on Reddit for why I'm including certain cards in this list and not including others. So, originally, for those who may be confused, the list I was playing ran 2 Northshire Cleric and did not play an Entomb. Uh, I have not been seeing a lot of aggro recently, though, specifically things that Northshire Cleric is strong against, so I have taken one out for the Entomb, which I have reflected on the website. Now that that's cleared up, I'm just going to go through all the cards in the list, give my thoughts on them and why they're in the deck. So first off, Pyreward Shield. Incredibly powerful card. I think it's an auto-include in almost every priest deck. We can move on from there. Northshire Cleric. I'm running one copy of it because Dragon Priest struggles to draw a bit, and it likes to have something to play in the early game. The reason why I'm not playing 2 anymore is because a lot of the minions that have come into Standard don't contest a 1/3 body very well. There are a lot of 3/2s, there are a lot of 2/1s that deal extra damage. It's pretty hard for a Northshire Cleric to kill something and then get additional value off of that. I'm playing 2 Shadowword Pain because it's an incredibly strong piece of removal at a very effective cost, and it kills all sorts of things right now. I mentioned that later in the article. I'm playing 2 Shadowword Death because this deck needs a lot of removal, although now that I'm playing an Entomb, I might consider cutting a Death because I'm not seeing as much Shaman. If you are seeing a lot of Shaman, you definitely want to play 2 of this card, though. Otherwise, you have no effective answer to Flame Wreath Faceless, and you will pretty much lose the game as soon as it hits the board. Then we get to Blackwing Technician. This card is a very powerful card in this deck, and I'm really happy that it actually turned out quite as well as it has. Blackwing Tech is an interesting card because 3 mana 2/4 is actually not that terrible worth of stats. You can play that and it can touch the board just fine. But getting that extra +1/+1, especially right now, is so good. This kills so many minions in the early games. There are all these 2/3s. There are all these other 3 health minions that are really annoying that Blackwing Tech just does a really good job of getting rid of. Acolyte of Pain, Spirit Wolves, things like that. I'm really happy with this card, and I highly recommend keeping 2 of them in the deck. Then we get on to Shifting Shade. When I first saw this card, I was really kind of skeptical. I was like, okay, it's a 4 mana 4/3. Those aren't great stats, but you get half a thought steal off of it. This card is super good. One of the best decks for us to run up against is Control Warrior. It's a very good matchup for us. And Shifting Shade is so good in this matchup in particular because you thought steal a legendary out of your opponent's deck at that stage of the game where they've used the Golden Monkey. I'm very satisfied with the card. It's very good at trading onto the board aggressively because usually you'll do something like play a Wormrest Agent, which I actually forgot to review, but he's an auto-include in the deck. I think that pretty much goes without saying. The card's insane. You'll have something like a Wormrest Agent out, or even a Twilight Guardian, and then you'll just play this Shifting Shade behind it, and then its health doesn't matter very much. You're just looking at that 4 attack, and it's very good for trading into other things. Very satisfied with this card. I would run 2 copies. Twilight Guardian card is excellent. It's a 4 mana 3/6 with Taunt. It's great at stopping aggro. It's really annoying for control decks to deal with because of the high health, and the attack is high enough that they can't just ignore it. It can still hit them at a pretty decent pace. Then Excavated Evil. I'm playing 1 Excavated Evil and 1 Holy Nova. The reason is, in some matchups, I really want the Excavated Evil. That extra damage is really important. Matchups like Shaman, it's very good there. Holy Nova doesn't quite fit the bill in that matchup unless you're ahead on board, which oftentimes you aren't. But for when you are ahead on board, you don't really want the Excavated Evil, you play Holy Nova. So if you're running into more control decks, I would either cut the Excavated Evil entirely, or I would play 2 Holy Nova. But if you're playing lots of aggro, lots of Zoo, lots of Shaman, I would run 2 Excavated Evil and 1 Holy Nova. I would run 2 Excavated Evil and 0 Holy Novas. Then we get on to Azure Drake. It's a dragon. We need dragons in this deck to activate our Dragon Matters cards. It gives us a card draw, which is something we need in this deck. We don't actually have much card draw, especially now that we've cut 1 Northshire Cleric. We've got our 2 Power Word Shields and our 1 Cleric and the 2 Drakes, and that's about all the draw the deck gets. And when we're running late game finishers like this, we want to try to draw into them. And then Blackwing Corruptor, card's insane. It's a 5-mana fire elemental. That's all there is to say about it. Entomb. This is a card that I did not play in the deck for a long time, and the reason for that actually was it's not what the deck wants to really do. As a Dragon Priest, we want to be proactive. We want to have a turn 2, and a turn 3, and a turn 4, and a turn 5, and we just want to kind of curve out into our finishers. This deck tends to go a bit longer in the game, though, so I figured I could justify putting the Entomb in. Also, on my climb up to Legend, which I detail in the article, I didn't run into a lot of Death Rattle, N'Zoth type decks, mainly N'Zoth Paladin. So I didn't really have a reason to play an Entomb. Shadow or Death usually fit the bill for most of the things I needed to kill. But as I've run into more of them in the actual Legend games, which you may see some later, I've found that this Entomb is a really important card because not only can you take away their big, scary Death Rattle threats, but then if the game goes later, you can also play them yourself and then make your N'Zoth even better. So I'm definitely very satisfied with this card. I was very thankful that a lot of people on Reddit and on Hearthstone pointed out that I was not playing one and were curious as to why, because you should be curious. You should ask questions. You shouldn't take this deck blindly as fact. If you don't like something, feel free to change it. You can ask me and I will try to help you understand why, what cards I'm playing, and why they're in this deck. And that's why I'm making this video. So 1 Cabal Shadow Priest. Cabal is a really good card now, and the only reason I'm not playing 2 of them is because I don't think I can fit 2. If I could make a 35 card deck or something like that, I would easily be playing 2 of these cards. But it's a very solid card. Takes lots of minions that can be hard to deal with, like Imp Gang Boss, gets them off the board, or Flame Tongue Totem if it's hidden behind a taunt. Very good card, very solid, don't cut this card. Sylvanas Windrunner. You're playing an N'Zoth deck. You want 2 Sylvanas, that goes without saying. Also, the card by itself is very strong right now. There's not a lot of silence in the meta. There are a few decks that have a lot of token summoning power, but there are also a lot of matchups where Sylvanas is going to get a good steal. This is an excellent card, and you should be playing it right now. I would be very hesitant to not play this in any control deck or most mid-range decks right now. It's an excellent card. Moving on, this is a card that's gotten some questions because not everybody has one, and they're curious as to why I'm playing him. Chillmaw. A lot of people are quick to point out that after N'Zoth the Corruptor, if I have a dragon in hand, Chillmaw's Death Rattle effect is going to kill off these Shifting Shades. And yes, that is true. But even then, you are still drawing 2 cards when the Shifting Shades die, so it's not the biggest loss. But against aggressive decks or even mid-range decks, this card is insane. It's so good at just putting something down that they have to deal with. They don't really want to use a spell on it because their board is going to blow up anyway. So they'll trade their whole board away, and it makes the turn really awkward for them. It's a great card for resetting the board, for catching up on tempo that you've lost. And sometimes they just can't kill Chillmaw. Or sometimes you don't have another dragon in hand. And in that case, you summon N'Zoth, and suddenly you've got this really annoying taunt minion in the way. If I'm playing against a warrior, for instance, and they have a Gorehowl out, and I play N'Zoth, they could normally just Gorehowl down my Sylvanas without me taking anything. But if I have a Chillmaw on the way, that's a lot harder for them to do. I'm a very big fan of this card. If you can make him for this deck, you should. Then we have Ysera. This is pretty self-explanatory. It's a powerful, albeit slow, late-game finisher. It's very important in Dragon Priest. You could cut this card if you don't have it for some other big dragons like Nefarian or Alexstrasza, or even Onyxia if you wanted to push the bill a little bit. Then the same substitutions go for this next card I'm going to talk about, and that is Deathwing Dragonlord. This card has gotten a ton of skepticism. People have called it really all-in, people have called it really slow. The idea of this deck is that it's got the really great defensive early game that Dragon Priest brings to the table, with cards like Wyrmrest Agent and Twilight Whelp and Blackwing Technician and Twilight Guardian. You've got that excellent defensive early game. But instead, rather your top end being a really reactive top end with like double Cabal and Sylvanas and Chillmaw and Ysera as your finishers, you're playing these 2 really big extra guys. and that's giving you a lot of reach against control decks. So what that means is that you should be favored against both aggro and control decks, which is what I found in playing the deck. That the deck really struggles against combo decks because it doesn't put much pressure down. But it's very good against aggro and control decks. And Deathwing Dragonlord is really the epitome of that anti-control card. The card is really hard to deal with just because it's huge. Sometimes your opponent just can't kill it, and you murder them with a Deathwing 12/12. Other times, they're hesitant to kill it because, yeah, they see this big scary dragon. They don't know what's in your deck. You could have 5 huge dragons in your hand. They have no idea. So they have to think about not just what happens when I kill Deathwing, but how do I deal with whatever comes out of Deathwing? So for that reason alone, I think it's a good card. Would I play it in this list if I wasn't playing N'Zoth? Oh no, not at all. But the fact that you get to summon it again is so huge. So many times I'll see an opponent, they'll use their last piece of removal for killing Deathwing. The game's gone on a long time. You're against a warrior. They've used their first execute on a Twilight Guardian or something. And then this bad boy hits the table. Okay, I guess I'm using my second execute on it. Even if it doesn't pull a dragon, then you play N'Zoth and you get it back, and you have a 12/12 again, and they can't beat it. The card is... It's done a lot of work in this list. It's stolen away a lot of games that, frankly, I otherwise would not have won. And then we get to the final card, one of the big core win conditions of the deck, N'Zoth the Corruptor. Dragon Priest wants to play these long, grindy games with other decks where you're going back and forth and you're looking to bait out the removal on smaller things, and then you're almost lulling your opponent into a sense of security. I've already played my Sylvanas, I've already played my Ysera and my Deathwing Dragonlord, so clearly he's running out of steam, right? I can just go ahead and make my play. I can play Ragnaros or something like that and try to pressure my opponent to end the game. And then this guy hits the table, and you get back your Deathwing, and your Chilma, and your Sylvanas, and your 2 Shifting Shades, and they've lost the board. And how are they going to win it back? How did they beat that? If you've played right, you've baited brawls already, and the game just ends right there. N'Zoth is such a powerful card. He's giving this deck so much more late-game reach. He's giving you the ability to fight against Control Warriors and N'Zoth Paladins and Reno Locks, all these decks that before would just crush Priest because they were able to kind of ignore Priest's early curve because it doesn't deal that much damage, it just controls the board well. They would ignore that curve, they would clear the board, and then they would play lots of late game cards. And that's really hard for Priest to deal with, especially now that we've lost Light Bomb. But N'Zoth is giving this deck all this reach to play lots of really big, terrifying minions and play them twice. N'Zoth is an excellent card, and I'm really glad that I was able to shape him into this list. Alright, so without further ado, let's hop into some games.
Anduin versus Gul'dan.
Alright, so first game, we're up against a Warlock. This should be a pretty good matchup for us, especially with a good hand like this.
Shall bring victory.
I am going to ship the Blackwing Corruptor, and I'm debating shifting the Power Word Shield or not. I think if I had a dragon in hand, I would definitely keep the Power Word Shield because it's so good with Wormrest Agent. But I think it's more important that I have a dragon in hand than it is I have the shield. Especially because he kept 2 cards, I'm expecting early play out of him. So I'm definitely going to ship both cards to find a dragon. This is nice. I got the shield back, and I got the dragon. And we even picked up the Twilight Whelp for turn 1. So we're just going to plop down the Whelp, and hopefully it's Zoo. It could be Reno Lock, I don't know. I expect we'll find out this turn. Yep, it is definitely Zoo. Okay, so we're just going to play Wormrest Agent, and we'll trade off the bubble, play around with Boosted Sergeant, Direwolf Alpha, those kinds of things. As well as it opens us up to both shield and heal something next turn. See Direwolf Alpha, but that's Coin Abusive Sergeant, so he gets the kill on it. Okay, that's fine. We still have a decent turn anyway. This game is looking pretty good for us. He's already used a lot of cards in his hand. He's used the coin. We have these 2 Corruptors that are going to be pretty hard for him to deal with now that he's used a lot of his buffs. We do Power Word first in case we draw our other Wormrest Agent. Didn't get it. That's fine. And yes. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw Imp Gang Boss here, or Darkshire Councilman. Forbidden Ritual is fine as well. It's actually much better for us because that card can be a real problem getting to the late game if we don't draw an AoE. Power of Overwhelming is pretty annoying here for us, but it's going to screw us at some point, so now or never, I suppose.
Buying or selling.
Alright, that's a pretty slow play for us. I think we're pretty pleased to see that. We're going to keep making trades to control the board. Just slowly... We will heal this. Even though he might have gotten a 1 damage thing like Elven Archer or Mortal Coil, I would rather have the 6 health on the Twilight Guardian than I would have the additional 1 health on the Twilight Weapon. That's what. If I healed 12 instead, the Twilight Guardian would have died to just the Tentacle. Alright, Blood Water is fine. We've got a Technician to deal with it. Because we have the second Twilight Guardian, we will make a bit of a slower play here. Okay, this is a little annoying because we don't have a dragon for our second Twilight Guardian. So we definitely don't just want to play him here. But we still are going to make a bit of a slower play here.
My work is paramount. Leave me alone.
Alright, so the play we ended up making was just one to set up a good board. We have answers to big cards, like Sea Giant. Hopefully we pick up a dragon so we can have an next turn. And we did, we got Death on Dragon Lord. That. Trade that away.
This time.
Easy game. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm having a lot of trouble with my internet tonight, so I will not be playing more games today. And I want to get this video up because I promised I would, but I may take it down and add more games if you want me to, or create a separate video with more games for you to watch later. Please let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for checking out my guide. See you guys soon.